You are an utter fool.
How many times do you think our country has lied?
The people leading those charges, they're communists. The people leading these charges are anarchists. Don't touch. This is my show.
I've never heard of an old country boy that's a germaphobe. Do you think that if Trump had been assassinated, do you think we would have had a civil war? How many times do you think our country has lied to us? How often do you think that happens?
Daily.
Daily?
Yeah, absolutely. Because in a nation of 80 million people, 30, whatever it is, the amount of stuff that goes on that they have to deal with, if they told us the hard truth about everything, we couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think...
So you don't think they should tell us the truth?
I don't think that the need to know is there.
So it's not like necessarily that they're lying.
Yeah, no, I don't think that they need to lie. I don't think that they need to talk about everything. And I think that just because the public feels that they have a right to know does not mean that they have a right to know. Because I'll give you, for instance, military secrets.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, just because that somebody wants to know that,
right.
They don't need to know that.
Yeah.
Certain things that the government... Now, I know there's this fine line between that, but I don't think that they do. Mm-hmm. No. I mean, for instance, does somebody have a right to know what you make financially? No, that's nobody's business.
Right, right.
Does somebody have a right to know what your house costs when you buy it? No. Mm-hmm. But that's all... So I'm a little bit funny about that stuff, I guess.
You got loose hair.
Don't touch.
I'm not going to touch the hair.
There we go.
Brother Tyler's very serious about his
hair. Don't touch my hair.
Don't touch his hair.
Don't touch my hair.
I put this up here. I want to put this up because I was going to say I'm very surprised that they're not like a proud sponsor of Tyler Gaulden. Like
Germex, so I should have two sponsors, or several sponsors. I should have Germex.
Germax?
Excuse me. Germex, okay, Germex.
Get it real close to the mic
so
anyways. They can hear it.
Okay. Germex should sponsor me. Okay. Dr. Pepper should sponsor me.
Do you like the Dr. Pepper Zero?
No.
Why not?
Because it's not as good. Okay, and then Chick-fil-A should sponsor me. I
believe that with all my heart.
That's the truth.
Dude.
Chick-fil-A, the Cathy family should.
Now,
take
don't
me on
save
for
your Chick-fil-A for the next day, though.
That's disgusting.
He thinks that's disgusting.
Warmed up chicken.
Let us know in the comments. Okay.
Can I say something right quick? Let me just say.
I was in the middle of a sentence.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just say something.
Okay, fine.
This is my show. Okay. Let me just say something.
Okay.
If it was so good to eat it the day after, why didn't you eat it the day before?
Because you're full. You were done eating. But
why did you order it? It's no cheaper to order it and save it than it is to not order it and go back and get it.
What? That doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Why,
so if you buy two sandwiches,
right, and then you're only hungry enough to eat one.
Right. Correct. It's not cheaper to save that sandwich and eat it tomorrow than it would be to not buy it today and then go back and buy it tomorrow.
I'm not saying it's not cheaper. I'm just saying...
Yeah, no.
It is cheap.
You're not saving anything.
You're saving,
You're going back by that Chick-fil-A.
Now, okay,
you and I both know
then let me
that.
ask you a follow-up question.
Okay.
If you have two Chick-fil-A sandwiches...
Yeah.
And you eat one of them and you're not hungry enough to eat the other...
Okay.
What are you going to do with that sandwich?
Why would you order two? You know your stomach.
But if you feel like you're going to eat two, and then you're like, I feel like I could save this for tomorrow, and I could
You need to learn your body better.
Oh my gosh, okay. Wait, this is when he relates it to like a scriptural reference and says,
I mean, I think
your body's the temple of the
No,
Lord.
I think
You better know your body.
You're a little self-indulgent. I think if... now, I'm sure that can happen on a case by... Why wouldn't you give it to a homeless person?
Oh, wow. Now here we go.
Here we go.
I'm a sinner because I want to take my Chick-fil-A home.
No, I don't think you're a sinner, but I do think that you are greedy.
I'm greedy and disgusting because it gets meaty. I'm greedy.
Birdie.
I'm greedy.
It's birdie.
Oh, it's birdie.
Birdie.
It's birdie.
The chicken is birdie.
That's the word that Pastor Tyler uses.
You've had birdie chicken. Don't tell me you hadn't had birdie chicken. Like when
I hate that birdie chicken.
Yeah, when you bite into that and it bites back, no. You know what else is worse than birdie chicken?
What's that?
When you bite into it and get what we call the gristle. You never heard of the gristle? It's like, I guess it's like strands of fat that, I feel nauseous. Fat on a ribeye renders down.
Renders.
Yeah, it renders. Fat on bird doesn't. So gristle on the bird is when the fat string is on there and salt and pepper and stop, I feel sick. I feel
Gristle.
nauseous. Okay, what are we talking about?
I'm just going to randomly say the word gristle.
Don't you say that word. Okay, go. What are we talking about?
They love talking about Chick-fil-A. I'll tell you right now, they're going to love that.
I'm sure that you all are going to love that.
Anyways.
Welcome to the sanctuary.
Welcome to the sanctuary, where we are trying our first episode of what is this, Tyler? What are we doing?
No idea.
We have no idea what
We're
this is.
going to call this Untied.
Untied.
Because I am on an off day. There's nobody in this sanctuary. You got people working out and about there. Avery's in the back there. And just me and Channing have set up some chairs because he's got some questions that he wants to ask. Some of them are spiritual. Some of them are just, I'm sure, just nosy. Mm-hmm. And then some of them are, I have no idea.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Help yourself.
First one today. What kind of signs are you seeing that is pointing towards a second coming?
So the biggest sign that you're going to see is what we would call the breakdown signs. Okay, that is the rot, the culture collapsing, the society collapsing, depravity setting in. Jesus talks about that in Matthew 24 and 25. He talks about in Luke 17 the days of Noah, the days of Lot. You study the days of Noah. What happens in the days of Noah is this breakdown of societal norms, violence, raging,
like the riots, like the BLM riots? Do you think that was a part of that? Or?
Oh, yeah. And it's not just, the problem with Black Lives Matters riots or this Palestinian stuff that you're seeing in New York City and this Free Palestine stuff. It's got a really good name. It's got a really good clause that it says this is why we're doing it. That's not why they're doing it.
Yeah.
You don't symbolize that lives matter by burning buildings down. Okay? Yeah. You don't symbolize that we want to free Palestine by shutting down highways and by
hiding in hospitals.
Yeah, no, that's the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
These people are anarchists.
Right.
Now, I don't doubt that there are some good people that want to see the Palestinian people freed, or whatever their wording is, and there are some good people that care about the injustices done to Black lives. I don't doubt that. Mm-hmm. But the people leading those charges, they're communist. Mm-hmm. The people leading these charges are anarchists. They hate democratic norms. They hate societal structure. They despise them. These people that are at the root of these, there are the leaders of Black Lives Matters, Free Palestine, and any other of these movements that are anarchist-based. What is an anarchist-based? They want to upend the system. They want to overthrow the entire system.
Yeah.
Okay, these people are led by the spirit of Antichrist. That's the bottom line.
Me and Britt had something interesting we were looking at. So, this is a good question. I actually do want to know this really badly. Does the Antichrist, he has to be Jewish? Like, does he have to, like, what are the requirements to be the Antichrist?
Daniel 9 gives us some of the stipulations of Antichrist. It would be my opinion that he probably is going to be Jewish. Now, there's some arguing on that line in Daniel 9.
Because I saw like some sort of like article, and maybe we can pull this up. It was like from Liberty University or something that said that the origins, it actually says it will come from Gentile descent.
It could. And again, if you think about it, he does not have to be Jewish to make the things happen that are going to happen.
But he also needs to be, he's going to sit in the temple.
He will, but when he does, though, it is called the abomination of desolation.
Right.
So his being there is desecrating the temple, but that's not because he's Gentile or Jewish. It's because he sets himself up as God.
Because we were thinking, we saw Barron Trump, and it was talking about how he has to be super tall, and he has to be handsome.
Yeah, I would be very careful. None of that says. That's not in there.
Right.
I would be very careful about those things. Okay, I get into it with Avery about some of this, and we talk about this. Be very careful about getting your theology from TikTok. Be very careful about getting your theology from articles that were written by bloggers. Be very careful getting your theology from guys that eat a whole lot of Lucky Charms, play games till midnight, and then come up with all types of crazy ideas for the rest of their night.
Conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous about those things. Could he? Yes. Now,
could anyone be?
If you think about, go back to what you're saying.
We weren't actually saying, oh, this is
no. I know.
Like, it could be him.
Yeah, let me say it like this. So the odds are he's not going to be ugly. The odds are he is going to be tall, dark, and handsome.
Right.
Just because that tends to be what culture follows. You know, other than Fidel Castro and some of these other just insane-looking people, you know, Che Guevara down in Latin America. I mean, most of the people that they follow, you know, they follow a certain look.
Right.
I don't know that, though.
Kind of leads, some of this stuff leads into my next question, which is like, and this is something that I've always wondered, can politics get to a point? Obviously, we can't put our faith and trust in a party. I mean, it's not Republican or Democrat. You know, we follow Christ, but do you think it gets to a certain point where it's like, okay, clearly one of these sides is for abortion, one of these sides is for, you know, all these things that are clearly against the word. And so do you think there's some people out there that can kind of maybe grow in the spirit or
I know what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
the question is there a time when it's no longer politics?
Right, that's my question.
The answer to that is absolutely, and we're in that time.
Right.
These are no longer domestic issues.
Right.
Okay, how we spend money.
Taxes.
No, we are dealing with light and darkness.
Right.
When you're talking about aborting a child, that's not a good idea or, hey, could we? No, that's right and wrong.
Right.
When you're talking about homosexual marriage and giving kids hormone blockers and puberty blockers, we're messing with the creation now. This is an affront to the Creator. Those are light and darkness issues. Those are right and wrong issues. And for Christians to take their hands off, you know, it's the most insane thing I've ever heard.
Along with that, like pastors.
Insane.
Insane.
And what they're fighting, now it's a knee-jerk reaction. You know, this is something that you've got to make sure you don't let people do. What they're fighting is they're seeing people that are becoming politically driven, thinking that salvation is going to come when a certain party's in office.
Right.
Okay. And what they're doing is they're saying, okay, that's a ditch. Yeah, it is. So what's their response? They get in the other ditch.
Right.
We talk about Jesus. We talk about, you know, okay, well, Jesus talked about the ruling parties of the day. Mm-hmm. He talked about the hypocrites that were in charge of the Jewish community and law. He dealt with the Romans. No, he did not try to overthrow Caesar, but he did look at the Roman coin, and he didn't say you ignore that. He said, no, you render unto Caesar what's Caesar's, unto God what's God's. My point is this. In the prophets, when they were in Babylon, they told the Jewish people, you seek the good of the nation you're in. Mm-hmm. Okay, we are to be the salt and light of this culture. And I ask this to these pastors that jump into this ditch of saying, take your hands off of it, don't talk about it. Okay, preach the word. Wonderful. Okay, here's my question. If we're called to be salt and light, but we only deal with Christians, who are we supposed to be salt and light to?
Right.
I'm pretty sure it's to the unsaved world around us.
Yeah.
Therefore, we're probably going to end up doing some political things. And I'm going to be frank with you. I don't intend to sit by, and I think it is insanely full. Avery, how controversial is this? You are an utter fool if you say, you know what, we're not going to talk about it at all. You're going to wake up one day, and all of the rights that God has gifted us with in this nation, they're going to be gone. And, you know, you and me are going to be looking around saying, what in the world happened?
Well, we had to be political correct.
Yeah, a bunch of spineless jellyfish that called themselves preachers. You look during the American Revolution, preachers would preach on Sunday. And they would have their musket waiting at the door and pick up their musket and go fight.
Yeah. Nowadays it's like, oh, we're not even willing to fight for a country. And it's like, and to be honest, I understand that. Because like, you think about it nowadays, and that's another, something we can get into, is like, ooh, do you want to fight for a country that is allowing some of the things, that's happening overseas? And it's like, what are you fighting for? Are you fighting for freedom anymore? Are you fighting,
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Right. I'm grateful. I want to stop and say I'm so grateful for the people that have served.
No. This has nothing to do with that. This has to do with and I know what you're saying. And he's right. This is not an attack on anyone. No, we're all thankful for that. That's not what we're talking about. Here's what we're dealing with. Yeah. What we're dealing with is, some of the things that America stands for. Do we really want to send our men and women to go fight? Do we want to
die?
Yeah. So the answer to that is yes, and here's why. This is why people that join the military still are joining an honorable cause, because the overarching umbrella of the American cause is freedom and democracy. Mm-hmm. It's against tyranny. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Now, I understand that, they're fighting against communist China. Mm-hmm. Well, they're fighting against communist China so they don't take our power. But communist China still represents oppression. Mm-hmm. They're against freedom of religion, against freedom of... So yes, it is still an honorable thing to fight for the American cause, because it's still, in an overarching way, it represents freedom. Mm-hmm. It represents right. So I would say, yeah, that'd be my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Hard to find a Bible verse on that, though.
Yeah.
But just in principle, that's where I would get to.
Yeah, because that's something that I've struggled with, is this kind of like... I've thought to myself, would I go fight? And sometimes that answer was yes, and sometimes that answer was no, because some of the things that were happening, and I'm almost embarrassed to say that, because it used to be this thing of like, we grew up in a country where you were proud to go, fight, and you wanted to be that person to.
Yeah, I understand the battle,
right?
People that have with that, and I get it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when you go to fight. Mm-hmm. The men and women that go to fight and sign up and are willing to give their lives, we've got in our church, we've got federal agents, we've got police officers. You look at some of the stuff that they have to deal with. Mm-hmm. But they don't sign up to deal with that.
Yeah.
They're not signing up, soldiers and agents and things. They're not signing up to push an agenda.
Do you think most people sign up for the right reasons?
I don't know their call. I don't know their motives. The people that I know do.
Yeah.
The people that I have experience with do. Now, I'm sure that there are some that don't.
Right.
But the people that I'm associated with are good people.
Yeah.
I mean, and you as well. I mean, these are honest people that are wanting to do right.
Right.
It's like that would be the same as asking, are there preachers out there that have ulterior motives? Well, I'm sure there are, but the ones I know want to do right. They want to see people safe.
You're not going to associate yourself with those.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to team up with those people, and you're not going to let, that.
Yeah, they're jacklegs. I have no time for them.
Yeah.
But I also don't make my decisions based off of them. And I think this is a point that probably should be made to you guys that are younger than I am. I think it would be very wise for you guys. See, you guys grew up in a world, and all you've ever known are social media. You get your facts off of these things right here.
Yep.
I grew up in a world that didn't have this, and it came into. You probably would behoove yourself to turn this off and other people's and think for yourself. Now, I don't mean that you don't. I'm just saying it's very hard to have an honest thought of what God is leading you to do when all you're getting is constant barrage of ideas and opinions. Some of the best things you can do is
turn it off
and just think.
Yeah.
You just process and think.
Mm-hmm.
Hosea, and I'm trying to think of the exact passage. Hosea said this, the Lord said through the prophet, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." What is knowledge? Knowledge, there's three things in the Bible. There's knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. Okay? Knowledge is the information itself. Understanding is the apprehension or the comprehension of that that knowledge. Wisdom is the application. The problem that you and I are having that no other generation's ever had for 500 years, since Gutenberg and the printing press, maybe even longer than that, 600 years, is we're not getting the right information. So sometimes what you've got to do is put down all these sources and just think. Let the Holy Spirit feed into you. That would be my recommendation to you.
That's good. Do you think that if Trump had been assassinated, do you think we would have had a civil war?
To a certain degree, I think there would have been a lot of unrest. The problem's not the right word, where I don't see an actual breaking out of civil war is the left seem to be the radical left, the anarchists on the radical left. If their party, they don't get what they want or something bad happens to them, they're the ones that topple buildings and start shooting people.
Yeah.
It does tend, now again, I understand the January 6th stuff, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, it does tend to be the people on the right do seem to abide by law and order. Now, you know, the whole Capitol thing was insanity, you know, now whether that, I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of that was set up. A lot. They were
I don't
obviously.
know, I wasn't there. I'm just saying, you know, thank God he wasn't assassinated. Thank God any leader. I don't want any leader. That's not how we do politics.
Right.
We don't kill the people we're against.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have been bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite crazy because I'm surprised that we haven't seen more of that. You know, that's
You're
sad.
going to. You're going to start seeing more unrest, and I'm going to tell you why. Because we are now dealing with a generation. Avery, here's going to be a clip, okay? You ready?
Yeah.
We live in a baby, candy cane, I want my way, and if I don't get it, I'm going to pitch a fit generation.
Yeah.
And what you're going to start seeing more and more as they become adults, if they don't get their way, they're going to pitch bigger fits.
Yeah.
They're going to throw bigger tantrums. And they live in a this is my world reality. Unfortunately, your reality is your reality, but it's not the reality.
Yeah.
And I do think you're going to start seeing more of this, I want my way, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get it. So I do think that we're in for some rough days ahead, but I think that's the prophetic side of it. I personally think that is the degrading of the society, the rot that comes. God has let the mind of so many people go, and depravity is going to start setting in ways we can't even dream of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Avery, you always have good questions. All right, give me a good question. You're always asking TikTok-inspired questions.
You talked a lot about yesterday in your sermon about the coming judgment and everything. Do you think you didn't really elaborate much on why God would have spared Trump? 10 is the number of judgment, like you said, or can be the number of judgment. Did he spare him because that's giving Trump an opportunity to turn around, or that's giving the American people a chance to turn around?
Good question. So why would God use Trump? I would say that probably because he's the most visible person that we have. You know, it is generically, God always uses what is seen to get people's attention, you know. I think God is giving him another chance. I mean, most certainly God does that to all of us. You know, he'll rattle our cage and get our attention. You know, I do believe that President Trump needs to be born again. I believe he fears God. I believe he has an understanding that there is a, you know, there's videos online of him saying that kind of stuff, but I think he needs to be born again, and I think God is trying to get his attention. I think the reason, you know, we talked about those numbers yesterday. I think the reason that God probably used that and used him specifically for that is his visibility. You know, he is seen, people pay attention to him. But I think that could have been, you know, the Lord has his reasons on that. But I would probably go with it was his visibility. I think the reason Trump is conservative, God-fearing, religious-minded people are paying attention to him.
Yeah.
Now, again, there's going to be caveats. There's going to be exceptions to every rule. That's my thought.
Because even he said himself, God saved my life.
I believe he did. I believe he realizes that. Now, what does he do with that? Again, realizing there's a God is not what saves a man.
Yeah, so you do believe that God saved Trump's life. It wasn't just...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I said yesterday, there can be no coincidences. If God is all-powerful, that doesn't mean he can do anything.
Yeah.
Of course he can. It means all things flow from him. Psalm 62, power belongeth to God. Therefore, any situation derives its being from God. Number two, God is all-knowing. That doesn't mean he knows it all. That means that all knowledge
is him.
come from him. He is the source. 1 + 1 + 1 doesn't equal 3, and God knows that. 1 + 1 + 1 equals 3 because God made it do that.
Yeah.
That's what it means when it says that God is all-knowing. And so if those two things are true, how can there be coincidence?
Yeah.
If you think that stuff just happens, you do not understand the way that the universe works together. And why do we think the universe works that way? Because there is an all-knowing, all-powerful creator that did not just create it, but he holds it together. Colossians 1. The ignorance of people. I'm an old country boy, and I get that.
Yeah.
Man, I'm from the backwoods of nowhere.
And that's another thing I wanted to say, by the way. I've never heard of an old country boy that's a germaphobe.
You don't know old country boys.
Old country boys are germaphobes?
Yes.
I never knew
Yeah.
that was a thing. I felt like they just go, like you go mudding. Would you go mudding?
I would go to near...
ATV going.
Yeah,
going
I would do that.
You would do that?
Yeah, I've done it. Yeah. Yeah, I would get on a four-wheeler and do that. But
What's
you know how
something
you know that you're not an old country boy and I am?
How
Because you called it an ATV. You know what it's called?
four-wheeler?
That's exactly what it's called, four-wheeler.
I use both terms, but
You don't?
to be honest,
Country boys call it four-wheelers. You all know that.
I'll say this: I'm a road boy because I grew up on the road. So I was in the country and the city.
I get it.
So I mean, I don't have an accent. I don't have any type of because I'm just from everywhere.
Let me say this though: you can be so smart that you're stupid. You can be so smart that you're ignorant, and here's why: the universe cannot be just perceived through numbers and letters and laws. Okay, those things are there to keep the order, to show you that there is something behind it. Laws and order and number are the means to take you to, how did that get there? How does that do that? It has to come from God. The reason people don't arrive at that point is they think that knowledge is the end goal. Knowledge is just a road that takes you to the source. Has anybody stopped to say, how does 1 + 1 + 1 equal 3? Okay, if you think that more knowledge gets you there, it doesn't. You have to look at that and say, okay, 1 + 1 + 1 always equals 3. It will never not equal 3. There's an absolute to that. So then immediately...
God is absolute.
Exactly. Immediately, philosophies and theories don't exist anymore on that.
Yeah.
That cannot just happen.
So when things happen and things are absolute, because the past is absolute, the past is not going to change.
Right.
Everything, therefore...
It has to have a source. There has to be something absolute.
Yeah.
Okay. If something is absolute, it must have always been absolute or come from something absolute. Okay. So 1 + 1 + 1 equals 3. It always will equal that. But was there a day when it started? Because if it didn't, then it's eternal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Therefore, if it's eternal, then it's bigger than time. And if it's bigger than time, then it's God. Okay, well, nobody would say, wait a second, 1 + 1 + 1 equals 3? It can't be God. That's right. Of course not. It had to come from something that is beyond time. 1 + 1 + 1 will always equal 3, but there was a day when it began.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, who began it? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, came from God.
It is an absolute. Therefore, it's either eternal or it came from something eternal.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to end it right there. God's the source. Look to Him in these times.
It's going to be great.
I guess that concludes our first.
Oh, here we go.
We got
Hold
another
on.
question.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's the first one. Okay.
You need a microphone.
You do need a microphone. Here, you can just use the camera.
It'll pick up on
Okay.
something. Were there not more signs of the end times during World War II when there was an explosion in population because the Germans were forcing women to be pregnant to create more soldiers? Jews were being persecuted and literally killed at a massive rate. People were without food because there were several signs during World War II that we see also today, but more on an extreme level during World War II. Would you not say that there were more signs during World War II than there are now?
No. Because war is what forced those things. What you're seeing today is the social norm. You see what I'm saying? The Germans forcing procreation. That was for war times, okay? The extermination of Jews, that depravity. That was during war times. Famine, hunger, all this thing. That's during war times. For the most part in the Western world today, that was a mass world war. You see what I mean? This covered, for the most part, the span of the globe except a few places, continents, things like that. Okay. Today, you've got pockets of war, an outbreak in nation here, nation there. But for the most part, the world is at generic peace. And you still see that depravity. You still see that struggle. That's the difference between the two. There have always been periods of war where there were most certainly times of hardness. But it's different. We're not in times of war. You know what I mean by that? World wars. Now you could, it could be. But that's the difference between the two. Second question.
We have obviously you know this, a lot of people like to Americanize the Bible.
Yes.
Do you think, looking at the world as a whole and the state of America, we look at the state of America and are like, oh, the end times are coming. Do you think that the fall of America is coincided? Is it like along with the fall?
Yeah, that's a good question. So here's my answer to that. When I use the term America, I'm referring to a place, but I'm also referring to a culture. Okay, America, for the most part, and the American way, it doesn't just represent the 50 states that are here. The American way, for the most part, represents the Western culture. You know what I'm saying? And so, yes, we do Americanize the Bible, and that's a big mistake. American Christianity is a joke. But the breakdown of America is not just going to be the breakdown of 50 states. It's going to be the breakdown of social norms as most of the world know it. The entire Western culture, which is going to represent probably 50 to 60% of the world's population. If America falls, now America's not going to fall overnight. It will be a day when it's over, but it's going to be a generic, slow, meticulous, hard to see collapse. It will collapse one brick at a time until one day the last brick falls and the walls come down. And when that day comes, that's going to be not just an American breakdown. It's going to represent the entire Western culture. That's the difference.
But I don't know if I ask the question, like, so if I look at like Switzerland right now, or let's say some of the countries that aren't touched, Australia, there's a few countries who I don't feel are feeling the effects that we are here in America, or like Russia or Ukraine, or some of the ones that are involved with wars. For them, I would argue that it's actually, I know I don't live over there, but I would argue it's a little more peaceful. And I would say that they don't think I would say the Christians there don't believe as much that we are as near as we do here in America, because we see it firsthand. Do you think, that's what I'm asking, do you think the fall of America comes before the rapture?
Well, that's two questions. I'd answer them both. Number one, we don't know what they feel over there. We don't know what their culture's like over there. You know, if you TikTok videos or YouTube, it's hard to ascertain what that is. It could be great. It could be fantastic. You know, they could be living in lollipop land.
Yeah, because a lot of people, like, honestly will think that the American culture is Miley Cyrus, Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Like, they will think that that is the American culture, where that's just not true.
Yeah. So I don't know the answer to that, Switzerland, things like that. I'm going to go with those cultures are less religious by nature. Australia may be, because Australia really has a British background, you know, the colonizations and things like that. Switzerland's going to be far more secular than anything. So I don't know the answer to that. The second thing is, do I believe that America falls before the rapture? I have a twofold answer. I have a hopeful answer and then a realistic answer. My hopeful answer is that there is a revival in America and that the rapture is what causes the fall of America. Because so many Christians are taken out that the culture just implodes at the rapture. That's my hope. I hope we see such a revival that so many people are saved that it falls after the rapture happens because so many Christians are taken out. That's my hopeful answer. The answer as it appears right now, it does look like there's going to be a very slow collapse. Now, when does the rapture take place in coordination with all that? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
How can you know?
I can give an opinion, but I don't think that'd be wise.
Yeah. Well, that seems like it's
This was fun.
This was a lot of fun.
We got to do this again.
We got to do it again.
Hey.
And this is Ties Off, I guess is what we're calling it. Or Ties or Tied?
Or untied.
Or Untied.
I don't know. You never wear a tie, so it can't be ties off.
That's true. It can't be Ties
But I
Off.
wear a tie
Untied.
all the time.
And also your name's Tyler.
Ties off. I don't really think we need a name. We'll come up with a name.
We'll come up with a name. You know what?
If
Let
it
us know
goes
in the
anywhere.
comments
That's
what the
right.
name should be.
That's a good idea.
And we will pick the best one.
Hey, thanks for watching.